All right. Ben, you want to throw up the slide presentation?
You want to switch it?
And you get it up and I'm going to run the mouse. I'm going to go through it pretty quick. All right. Tonight we're going to talk about making faux burls. That's a highfalutin term for making fake burls. So the question is why? And let's go to the next page. So why make a fake burl? Well, there is a reason I got into it. I'll tell you in a second. We're going to review 3 methods that I have practiced over the course of several months. There's a lot of stuff out on the internet, so this is a combination of what's out there. So we're going to do 2 quick demonstrations. So next. The reason I got into this, the premier consignment was they bought a credenza and a desk. And as they were bringing it back to the shop, the top of both fell on the parkway and slid along. You can see the skid marks there. That top was a burl. And the problem was that they had to buy it now, and they're going to have to resell it. So they wanted to do this without putting a whole lot of cost in it. When I checked, price for a burl to cover the desk and credenza was over $800. And that was just for a veneer burl. And there would be probably another couple $100 of border veneer that went around it. Turned out that the burl was actually 1/8 of an inch thick, so you could actually sand it down. The problem was, when you sanded it, you can see the white spots. That's where they patched it, and they had done a fake burl on that top. So I needed to find a way to do it. And this is the background of why I started making fake burls. All right, next. So these are some examples. I've got some up here, and I'm going to pass a few of them around, and we'll start with, why don't you
stand right up there and show them?
Why don't you put half of them on that side and half the others. There's a whole bunch of them up here. But these are 3 examples. And it's a fairly easy technique to do. Let's go ahead next. Some more examples. This is more like a map of burl, if you're familiar with that. There's a box up here that is a map of burl. It's you want to hold that box up? No, that's the fake. That's a different fake, and the last one is the real one. So that is the real map of burl, and this is the fake.
Just switch over to switch cameras.
You're on slide 9 camera.
Yep.
Yeah, slide move bar. This one. Yep.
So you can see the difference. I mean, there's a slight difference, and if you look at them carefully, you can see the difference. But in terms of overall look, they're very, very similar. And in order to do this, we're going to go through some process. Go ahead. So what we need is any smooth surface. This is actually done on masonite. You can do it on paper, you can do it on cardboard, you can do it on plywood, you can do whatever you want. Just flat. You need a latex base paint, and burnt orange works. That's the fundamental undercoat that you're going to build upon. You need spray shellac, because shellac sticks to everything. What sticks to shellac? Everything. So it's a seal coat. Once you get what you want, you seal it with shellac. You use oil-based stains. It's nice to have a heavy body stain, but any stain will work. Mineral spirits, thin plastic bag, and we'll show you how to use that. Some rags, and one of the things I found out was Japanese dry. Has anybody here heard of Japanese dry? 1?
I have.
2. Well, it is unusual, but we're going to use it tonight, and the reason is it actually accelerates the drying process of oil-based products. So we're going to use oil-based stains, and it will dry it faster. And we're going to have to accelerate it with a little heat. So I brought a heat gun. We need brushes, and there's a variety of brushes, rags, and a sponge. Okay? So we're gonna go fast here. So brushes, stencil brushes, chip brushes. If you ever use chip brushes, they are very prone to losing bristles, and they end up with a very rough textured edge, which is good when you want to paint grain in a wood. Round, soft, artist brushes, next. And then a soft brush used for blending, a little small brush for putting little dots on, and a flogger. This is not a flogger, because a flogger would be about a 6-inch bristle. And you use that in order to actually make grain, and we'll use that tonight. And a graining brush, which is just one that I've just cut out a whole bunch of bristles, so it's really pretty rough. Next. So we're going to go method 1, making that knotty burl. First step. Next. Cover surface burnt orange. Spray it with shellac in order to create a surface that will stay and is called a slip coat. Next, you paint dots on it, different colors. Okay, doesn't look very pretty, does it? Next, you're going to print mineral spirits between the dots, just randomly. Next, you're going to take a plastic bag, crumple it up, and you put it on and twirl it, and it creates texture. Next, you use stencil brush and you twirl it where the knots are going to be, and it gives you a texture of a knot in that space. Next, you then use the larger chip brush and you put the grain between the knots. Next, you soften the grain with a soft brush or a round brush by stippling it. So you're taking a lot of the grain off and making it look a little softer. And you then spray it with shellac to lock it. And then you add a wash coat. And what the wash coat does is it is just a simple thin coat of stain that goes over the entire board, and it pulls all the various colors together because it unifies the various colors in the board. And you lock it with spray shellac. Okay? Number 2, we're going to do tiger wood. And I'll demonstrate this one today. You start off with, next, laying down a dark glaze on your background. Next. And you actually use the flogger with a flipping action. You actually slap the grain, and you can see what it looks like, the grain detail. And once you've got that, you then lock it with shellac. Next. Paint another glaze on top of it. Next. You take a roller that has rags around it with wrapped, and you twist the rag so it has those ridges, and you simply roll it across the board, and you get that pattern. You lock that with shellac, and you're done. The other one we're going to demo tonight is making the maple burl, and this is a very easy step. Number 1, go next. You lay down, flood the surface with color, and you just kind of get everything running together. You want flow. You want the stuff to flow back and forth. Next, use your plastic bag, crumple it, get some texture. Next, you add the darker areas, and you drag a sponge or a brush to create the grain between the dots. Next, you then add additional grain with a brush, so you can kind of define it. It loses its texture when it's a little bit wet. So after it's been locked, you come back in with a soft brush that has grain texture on it, and it adds the grain back in. Okay, next. And you cover it with a glaze coat. So that is how you end up with this, and you cover it with shellac to lock it in. And let's go next. Demos. Well, I've told you what it's supposed to do and what it's supposed to look like, so we hope that the demo actually works. So we're going to start with the maple burl, and then we're going to let that dry, and then switch over to the tiger. And when we finish that, we'll come back to the maple. So we're going to be able to do this hopefully in about half an hour. First thing we've done is we have a series of stains. I have a light stain, which is just Home Depot stains. And I've got a summer oak, I've got a colonial maple, I've got a red chestnut, I have a American walnut, and a Kona, which is almost a dark black, and some mineral spirits. So first thing I'm going to do is,
I'm just thinking,
just remove the lids. It doesn't take a whole lot of stain, just a little bit. And we're going to put the Japan Dry in the stain. And I'm going to get on some gloves so I don't want to walk with stained hands anyplace.
Oil-based stain?
This is all oil-based stain. Most of this came from Home Depot or Sloan's. It's standard. It's what you have in your shop. Everybody has some. The base is a burnt orange latex paint. Any color orange, any base wood color. You want a little bit of texture. I think this works pretty good. But an orange or a burnt orange, a dark yellow, anything like that works. This is the Japan Dry. It takes only a few drops. And so we're going to use a pipette. And we now have Japan Dry in each of them. First step, I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to drop. Now, is this being picked up on camera? Okay. Just drop stuff. And all I'm trying to do is get a variety of different colors. Just a little bit of red oak or the red chestnut. Okay. We next are going to put our mineral spirits okay, and we have it. Paper bag, or plastic bag. So I want it all crumpled up, and we're just going to all right. I am now going to come back in and I'm going to create some grain, and I'm going to get a little touch of color. And I want my brush fairly dry. I'm trying to spread the bristles.
Which brush is that?
It's just a flat artist brush. So I'm creating a grain pattern here. Okay, we're going to come back in, put some darker spots. Where some of the darker spots here are. And I'm going to come in and put some really dark spots on a couple of spots here. And there's no rhyme or reason, it's just whatever you feel like. Remember who was the painter that used to do the happy painting? Is it oils, paints?
Bob Ross. Bob Ross.
Who?
Bob Ross.
Ross, yeah. So you got to be just, doing happy brush strokes here. All right. So we're going to add some darker spots here now that we've got that. And what I don't want it to do is I don't want it to look round. I want it to, this is just a soft, whoops, soft bristle brush that I can use. And you see how it is changing the directions. Okay, so that is the base. And I'm going to simply dry it for a little bit here with the heat gun. And we're going to set it aside, and then we're going to move on to the next one. It's going to be a little bit wet. It'll take a second to dry. When you do this, if you have something that doesn't look very good, all you have to do is take a rag and wipe it off, start over again. Or if it's halfway through it, paint over it, start it again. So it's very easy to do this, and I got a spot there I want to get rid of. All right. We're going to, I want to get this thing so it doesn't run. The stuff up here on top is looking pretty good. I've got quite a bit of mineral spurts down here at the bottom, and it's still a little bit soupy. But it's starting to, and I don't want my lines in there, so I'm going to kind of put some. All right, so that is the base, and I'm going to just move that over here and let it dry. So this is our second one. So what I want to do is, I want to make sure I got a good base coat on. A little bit of shellac. Dry it. All right, so I'm going to put a base coat of, we'll use a little bit of summer oak. Oh, it's got darker in it, but that's fine. And I just want to put this all over the board.
What is that material that you're putting it on? Is that MDF or?
It's masonite.
Masonite.
Yep. So I've got my base down. I'm going to take my flogger, and I'm going to actually flog it to get the grain in. So all I'm doing is turn the brush over. Okay, can you get a close-up of that?
There you go.
See the grain? I can't see what I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so now we've got to dry it. Then we're going to lock it with the shellac. And you can do this, I mean, because this is, I mean, look, the amount of stain I'm using here is, you know, a couple of teaspoons of stain. And any flat material, so cardboard or masonite or, you know, whatever you got, works very well. And you can go through 10 tries, and if you get one good one, great. I think my success rate is more like 50%, maybe 60%. But there's no reason to try a different one if it doesn't look good.
How long
Alright.
are those stains good for? How long will they keep? A week?
No, well, the stains in the cans will stay for years. When you put the Japan dry, generally it will dry probably overnight or a couple of days. It's quick. So we now have the grain. We're going to lock it in. With shellac. Now when I turn this on and the fire starts to jump at me, please save me. All right, I think we're about ready to go here. No, it's still a little bit wet. And as long as I'm doing this one, I'm going to do this one.
So the rate of fires involved in that 50% statistic?
What?
Are there any fires involved in that 50% statistic?
Not yet. Okay. I think we're good to go. All right, so now we're going to put a, let's see, what do I want? I'm going to do a colonial maple. Whoops, I used the wrong brush. Let's do
Having a
colonial.
mistake?
That is a mistake. All right, nice and even. Oh, Ben just said I missed a spot. All right, my rollers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, let's see, I got to figure out which way I'm going to go with this. I'm going to start it here.
Oh, that looks good.
See it? All right. Whoops, can't do that yet. Got to dry it. And I've got a little something that came on right there, and right there. So you can play around with different colors. I've done this in the really dark shades, light shades. You can do multiples of it. You can build up layers. It's pretty versatile. All right. So now we've got that, and one done, almost. All right, we're going to set that aside for a little bit because it's still not totally dry. And we're going to move back to this one. And we want to dry it some more. Make sure we're absolutely dry. You can see it's still wet down here in the bottom. What I'm doing is just kind of getting rid of some of the excess stain and mineral spirits. Nothing like watching paint dry, right? What's that?
Faster than watching grass grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
All
Dick,
right.
just angle it up so people can see it so far a little better. There you go.
Okay, lock it in. So the next step is we're going to dry this, then we're going to add some graining, then we'll come back and add some detailed spots. The map of Burl has a lot of little tiny, almost microscopic black dots in it.
So what is the map of
Map of Burl is,
You may get one of those panels.
yeah, well, once they, yeah, that's a map of Burl right there.
Put it in the camera, put it in front of the camera.
Is it a special kind of oil or?
Yeah, you can buy veneer at Woodcraft or a lot of different places. It's a fairly common burl. It's probably one of the cheapest burls. You know, if you want a oak burl or a walnut burl, much more expensive. But even this is getting, you know, you probably pay $30, $40 for one sheet of burl that's about that size. All right. If I've done this correctly, we're going to now create a variety of lines, and what I want to do is trying to get my brush. I'm actually pushing this brush and trying to spread the bristles. And I don't know if you can see the lines that are going in there. All right. So I want to lock that again. And then we're going to come back and add some feature spots. This is probably a little dark for a maple burl. It's normally fairly light, but it will be a burl regardless. Okay. So we're going to take our maple, and I'm going to just make some spots in here. And I'm coming back with the Kona, which is the very dark. I'm going to put it in the middle of some of these spots that I just created. And I'm going to take my micro brush, and you know what a cat's paw is? Anybody know? It's when you have a piece of wood that has generally 3 or 4 little tiny knots in it that, you know, you look at the grain and it's not quite a knot, but it's definitely something. Well, they normally are in these things, so I'm going to put some various cat paws prints in here. I don't want a lot of moisture on it. to and I want to soften that. So, where's my round? There's round.
Dick, does Mary ever let you go upstairs?
Rarely. And when she does, she has chores for me.
This is all being recorded, remember?
All right. Not quite a map of Burl, but it is,
Do you have to dry first?
yeah. It is a, it's something.
Okay. Ben, let me hold the microphone. Switch.
All right. So because this ended up turning out to be much darker than I intended, this is not a keeper, I think. But you see the process. What we're going to do is we're going to put a wash coat on that's a darker wash coat. And the wash coat is going to be a walnut. So all those different colors now have been blended together with that wash coat. It unifies everything. All right. So we now have whatever that is. Clearly, the demonstration at the woodworkers meeting did not look like a map of Burl. So here is one where I actually think I achieved what it looks like. The board has already been prepped with the latex paint, burnt orange, and also sprayed it with shellac to seal it. So we're going to use the summer oak as the base background. And the second thing we're going to do is we're going to add some of the cherry, a little bit darker. And finally, just a little touch of red everywhere. That's the red chestnut. In order to get this set up, what we're going to do is now paint mineral spirits liberally around it. And I'm not worried about patterns or anything else. I'm just trying to get some nice mineral spirits between the things so it will eventually run and be a fairly light background. And the next item that we're going to use is our plastic bag. Just a grocery sack. And wad it up and kind of get some texture. And we're going to simply dab this to move the paint around and give some texture. Little twisting motion. Okay, so that is our background texture. I want to add a few highlight areas. I'm going to use my American walnut. Put a couple of drops in here. Trying to pick up the bigger areas that might have a little bit of dark in them. And I am now going to try to just soften this and use a chip brush, put in some very soft lines. These are kind of grain lines. Drag it through. Just adding some grain. You want to get some nice grain movement. This is not going to end up lasting because of all of the mineral spirits, but you can see it gives a kind of a nice texture down there. Do this one and up in here. And if I don't like anything, this one's probably a little bit too strong. What I'm going to do is just dab it. And then come back and rebrush it. So that is our base. And what we have to do now is let it dry, and we'll come back and seal it for the next step. One of the things that I see is just a couple of places where I've probably dropped some bristles. So using the chip brush, just flicking it, trying to get those off. And we are now set. So to help accelerate dry, what I'm going to use is a heat gun. Keep it fairly far away. I don't want it to ruin the pattern that I've built up. And just let it go over it. And up. Once the mineral spirits and oil stain is dry, go ahead and seal it with shellac. Put a good layer of shellac on it. I'll make sure the next layer of oil does not penetrate the shellac. It will dissolve the oils underneath it, and you get a ring. So that needs to dry. And we can again speed it along using the heat gun. The next process in creating a map of Burl is to create small areas that are dotted all over the burl. So we're just using a small brush and just kind of dotting those. I use a variety of different colors. Some of them are the summer oak. Now I'm going back in with the cherry. And just kind of get them around. Make sure you get them different sizes. That'd be accomplished by changing brushes and using a little smaller brush. Now the next thing is to put a little darker spot in the center of these. You just get a little color in there. Make sure it's a dry brush so you're not using a whole lot of paint and you don't want the thing to run. Just giving some variation. Okay, I'm going to soften that just a little bit with our rabbit brush. Just trying to get it so it not quite so dramatic circles. And now that we've got that background, I'm going to dry it again. Now we're going to lock it in place with our shellac. And dry it with the heat gun. Next process is we're going to use a chip brush. I'm going to load the color onto the tips just slightly. I'm going to dip it into a variety of different colors. And spread the bristles. And the goal is to follow the original lines and just add some very light grain lines. And now you can see it coming. So I dip and add a little bit of color. Try to get some variation in colors. And I'm trying to do a light line. That was a little bit dark. And come back in. And lighten that guy up a little bit. Use our soft rabbit brush. Take some of that out. And we still have a little bit down here to do.
And I'm going to now take my soft stipple brush and just soften some of that grain so it's not quite so obvious. You still see a hint of it. Okay. The next step is to dry it and then lock it with shellac. Here comes the shellac. So in order to make this look a little bit more real, you've got to add some black dots, which are called cat paws. And they normally are in 3 or 5 odd numbers. So for instance, if I go put 5 there, number there, and you can see I'm using the micro brush. Try to follow some of these lines so you get some detail in it. And over here, we're going to add a few into these circles. And I want to try to put it on the edge of the circle a little bit to hide the fact that it's more circular than anything else. And every time I do this, I'm trying to get the brush relatively dry. I do not want globs of paint. So I'm just touching the brush to the paper, and allows me to get some smaller dots. I'm going to go to the Kona now. I was using the walnut. Kona's a little darker, a little blacker. And again, I'm just trying to just put some dots there. A little bit hard. I'm going to soften it with the stipple brush. Come back in and just put some smaller black dots around. I'm not doing every one of them, but I'm doing most. Add some standalone dots a few places here. All right. One of the things you tend to do sometimes is to overdo. Too many dots, too many dark spots, and you'll learn kind of when to stop. Sometimes it's better to do less than more. All right. That's looking good. So the next item is to, all right, we are dry, so we're going to take our shellac, lock everything in place. Time to dry it again. And I want to make sure that this is good and dry because we're going to put our wash coat, which is our last coat on. Our wash coat is going to be our summer oak, a real thin mixture. I want to get it nice and even over the entire surface. And what it's going to do is it's going to add color to everything that's the same, so it ties everything together. All right, it's dry, so next thing is the wash coat. And I'm going to be using a watercolor brush, getting that loaded a little bit with some mineral spirits because I want it thin. Then I'm going to take my summer oak and just paint it on. I want to get rid of any brush strokes. And make sure I get even coverage. And we're done. Dry it, and then lock it with shellac. So we have now a imitation map of Burl. In making all these burls, I've learned a thing about some things I would do differently. You're only going to get about 50% of them to actually turn out the way you want. And if that happens, don't worry about it. You can always redo. Don't overdo dark spots or knots. Less is always better. Mistakes can be wiped off with a rag if the stain is still wet. If not, you can start again and reuse the board by sanding and repainting. Don't add stain to almost dried stain because that new stain, the solvent rings will appear and you'll end up with basically it looks like raindrops on your board. Even with the best intent and the identical techniques, no two burls are going to come out the same. It's always a surprise. So enjoy, try it. You're going to have to try it multiple times, and I think you will be pleased with the outcome.